Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And in this video, I'm going to talk about relationships, and not just in the romantic sense. And yes, there is a difference, and yes, that difference matters, especially if you're seeking meaningful romance. Now, there are many things that go into making a romance work, but a lot of it comes back to two people having a functional relationship. And in the world of romance, both in real life and in fiction, that's not always a given. What makes a relationship functional may vary from couple to couple, but more often than not, it's helpful when all those involved have an equal stake in the romance. Because it's not just about how much two people love each other. It also requires that they share, sacrifice, and support one another, even when it's difficult or inconvenient. And when a relationship is unequal in those dynamics, it can get messy, as well as decidedly unromantic. And this brings me to one of my favorite TV shows, The Big Bang Theory. I know, just mentioning that show is bound to evoke a wide range of reactions, both positive and negative. I also know that sitcoms in general are notorious for having bad romantic subplots and bad relationships dynamics. Hell, some of the relationships glorified in those shows come off as downright toxic. Looking at you, How I Met Your Mother. But having followed The Big Bang Theory through every season, I've also followed every romantic subplot that it explored, both the good and the bad. And of all the relationships explored throughout the course of the show, the one that I find to be the most unequal, not to mention the most frustrating, is the romance of Penny and Leonard. Now, I realize that just saying that puts me at odds with many other fans of the show. I also admit that Penny and Leonard is the central romance of the show. From the first episode to the series finale, this romance has been the driving force behind many plots and subplots. And that's perfectly understandable. On paper, it has the right ingredients to be a good romance. A cute girl moves in across the hall, a lonely single guy takes notice, they start to interact, learning and growing together until something deeper blossoms. There's nothing wrong with that being the foundation of a romance and a functional relationship. There are plenty of wonderful love stories, real and fictional, that begin this way. But it's how this relationship unfolds that make Penny and Leonard an unstable romance at best and distressingly unequal at worst. Now, some of those flaws are in the very premise of the standard romantic trope of opposites attract. It is a common theme in many romance stories, and it can definitely work in the real world too. It may fail more often than it works, but it's part of the appeal of Penny and Leonard. The show is offering us, the audience, a narrative of how powerful it can be when it does work. The problem is that the show's overarching narrative overlooks many flaws within the relationship. Sure, the romance and the attraction is there, but when you look at how Penny and Leonard's relationship actually functions, it's hard not to see some serious shortcomings. And to appreciate the extent of those shortcomings, just take a moment and look at the basic personality traits for each character. Penny is this outgoing, bubbly, sociable, affectionate young woman who connects easily with others. But she's also impulsive, irresponsible, immature, and downright ditzy at times, catering to nearly every dumb blonde stereotype imaginable, especially in the early seasons. By contrast, Leonard Hoffsteader is this shy, repressed, awkward, neurotic, and exceedingly needy young man. Yes, he has a good heart and is fiercely loyal to his friends, but he also caters to nearly every nerdy geek stereotype imaginable. By almost every measure, their personalities are very different. But even so, there is certainly some appeal to seeing these two come together. After all, love finds a way, right? But again, love is only part of the equation here. Yes, it's an important variable, but actually making the relationship work requires a lot more than that. Because it's one thing for a princess to fall in love with a nefarious smuggler. It's quite another to make that relationship actually function, given the vast differences between these characters. When two people come from different worlds and have different interests, it can hinder communication between them, among many other issues. And any relationship expert with any degree of competence will agree. Poor communication is detrimental to any relationship or romance. And throughout the course of the show, communication between Penny and Leonard is frequently obscure or unclear. It leads to many of the hijinks throughout the show, some of which are plenty funny. They can also do plenty to undermine the overarching romance. Early in season 2, Penny and Leonard send each other a lot of mixed messages by dating other people. Penny dates one of her stereotypical dumb jock types, while Leonard dates another stereotypical nerd type. Despite having already gone on a date with one another at this point in the show, there's really no excuse for ambiguity at this point. They know where they stand. Penny knows Leonard is attracted to him, and she's starting to have feelings for him as well. Later on in season 3, things get even more erratic. In episode 19, The Wheaton Recurrence, Leonard tells Penny he loves her, and her response is a decidedly unromantic thank you. It's played up for laughs, but it reveals something striking about their relationship at this point. They are not on the same page. Even if the love is there, their inability to mutually acknowledge it's not healthy to say the least. It ultimately leads to another breakup between them, something that becomes a recurring theme over the course of the show. And yes, they eventually come back together, and yes, Penny eventually does admit that she loves him, albeit several seasons down the line. But still, this inability to get on the same emotional wavelength shows that there's a real disconnect at play here. And, as a result, the inequalities become more and more striking. They often go beyond just having different personality types. Good relationships can overcome different personalities, but it's the inequalities that tend to be more detrimental in the long run. And what makes this particular relationship so unequal is that nearly every major decision, every point of progress, and every major turn is usually done by one person, Penny. She often decides if and when they go out on dates. She often decides if and when they begin or resume a relationship. She often decides if and when she and Leonard have sex. And Leonard, being the quintessential beta male, knowing he can never hope to get another girl as cute as Penny, really never does anything to assert himself. He does try at times, most notably in season 3, episode 23, The Lunar Excitation. In that episode, he actually tries to do with Penny exactly what she did with him in that same episode. Get drunk and assert that they're going to have sex. It worked when Penny did it, but when Leonard does it, it just fails spectacularly. Now, I understand there's a serious double standard in this scenario. A man asserting sex with a woman is still very taboo, and for good reason. But the sheer ineptitude that Leonard demonstrates makes the taboo a moot point here. It also further reinforces that Penny is the one with all the leverage in this relationship. She can end it, start it, and guide it as she sees fit. And Leonard, being so meek and needy, can never assert himself convincingly. These sorts of inequalities don't just create bad dynamics for their relationship, it also makes the jealousy they experience a whole lot worse. In season 6, episode 8, The 43 Peculiarity, Penny and Leonard are together again, and things seem to be functional. But then Penny gets an attractive male lab partner while going to community college. And despite Penny insisting that it's strictly platonic, it's still enough to freak Leonard out. While it is funny in how he deals with it, this kind of jealousy reveals another serious flaw in their relationship. You see, jealousy, particularly the unhealthy variety, often goes far beyond simple envy. I mean, we've all seen someone driving a nicer car than us and felt a twinge of envy. That's entirely normal. But the jealousy in this instance comes off as downright possessive. And at this point in the show, Leonard sees his relationship with Penny as a precious piece of property and one he must guard from those who might steal it. It's also clear that he doesn't entirely trust Penny. He knows she's impulsive and has a lengthy history of sexual promiscuity. And despite the love he has for her and all they've been through, he still lets it get to him. Even for someone as needy as him, it's not healthy. But Penny is just as guilty of this kind of jealousy as well. In Season 6, Episode 3, the Higgs boson observation, Leonard connects with Sheldon's new female assistant, Alex. And unlike him and Penny, they share similar interests. They're able to interact and quip with one another fairly well. And after some initial banter with Amy, Penny flat out admits that this bothers her. Even though she has so much leverage in this relationship, she still lets it get to her. And it gives the impression that she owns Leonard's affection for her. And no matter how much she has him wrapped around her finger, she just can't stand anyone undermining it. Again, that is not healthy with respect to relationship dynamics. Because when jealousy becomes possessive, it tends to dehumanize everyone involved. Jealousy at its least damaging is supposed to remind us how we feel about our significant others, not that we own them or their emotions towards us. And that, I feel, is the biggest flaw with Penny and Leonard. Their relationship is something they both think they possess, like a piece of jewelry or a mint-condition comic book. They cannot discern the concept from the person. And what makes this dynamic even worse is how Penny's power extends beyond her relationship with Leonard. Throughout the show, her tendency towards promiscuity is well documented. For better or for worse, it's very much in keeping with the pretty blonde stereotype that Penny seems to embody. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nobody should shame anyone for having a healthy libido. But this aspect of Penny's personality helps reveal what I think is the most serious inequality of this relationship. It all boils down to this. If she wanted to, Penny could end her relationship with Leonard on a whim and probably find someone else just like Leonard or someone who's the exact opposite of him, and possibly on the same day. Due to her looks and her social skills, she can easily find someone else to be with. But Leonard, being so socially awkward, just can't do this. Sure, it's not impossible for him to find someone else, but his poor social skills and nerdy disposition limit him in ways that never affect Penny. She still has all the leverage, and the success of the relationship over the course of the show often depends on her and what she decides. And that's just not a foundation for a mutual relationship. Even if Penny loves Leonard, and it's clear by the end of the show that she does, the burdens never feel equally shared. The dynamics never feel balanced, and while I don't deny the romance has some strengths, I feel like the flaws are quite substantial. Naturally, these flaws don't derail how the relationship blossoms and eventually culminates. After all, TV always takes liberties with certain relationships dynamics. And even by sitcom standards, Penny and Leonard needed a lot more than most. Again, I don't deny the appeal of their romance. It certainly helped to make the show more entertaining and dramatic at times. But when you take a step back and look at the dynamics of this relationship, it's hard to overlook the many shortcomings and imbalances. Compared to the other relationships that played out in the show, theirs was much more troubled. They had to overcome a lot to end up where they did in the finale. But when a relationship has that many inequalities to navigate, it tends to undermine the romance, no matter how sincere it might be. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and bazinga!